G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Excellent. Well, Monique, thanks so much for making the time to catch up. You know, as we were just saying, I'm looking forward to this conversation for a whole range of reasons, but I think it's really relevant to business owners. Why don't I get you to tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me. Who I am, I'm Monique Helstrom. I am a former and lifelong executive assistant. My most recent position as chief of Simon Sinek. I was his producer. My title was chief of Simon, and I was his producer. And I basically brought the visionary ideas to life, to tangible, real form. And in doing that, you know, not only obviously I realized what a significant impact an executive assistant can have on an executive when done right. I also learned during that time that most executives don't know what to do with an assistant. You know, and I understand. It makes sense, you know. Administrative professionals, there's no class, there's no course for us, there's no college class, and there's certainly not one for executives on how to utilize, how to have, what to do with this unbelievable piece of machinery called an executive assistant. So I'm here to change that. I'm here to bridge that gap. I do, so I really center in that relationship between an executive and their assistant. And then that provides, sometimes it's recruiting. I actually do recruiting for assistants to really make that, you know, yin to yang match.
Yeah.
I do coaching on both sides. I coach executive assistants on how to be better, both skills and personality. I coach executives on how to have an assistant. And I do speaking on the same topics as well. So
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I just think it's such an important area. Obviously, our audience is small business owners, and you know, I've seen some huge productivity leaps from small business owners who engage effectively, and I should use that word effectively because if you're engaging ineffectively with an assistant, it's potentially not going to help you too much.
Right.
But tell me a bit more about the typical clients that you work with. And I suppose I'm particularly interested to know, like, what is it that tends to trigger them to come and ask you for help?
Sure. Them coming to me for help, well, from the executive side is one of a few things. They're an executive who's had an assistant for 20, 25, 30 years. They know what they want. They love their assistant. They utilize them great. They know an expert is needed to find this very unique and specific position. So they come to me for the expertise. They don't want to have to do 6 months of trying to find the perfect human. I can get it done for them in a month. So that's one section of my clients that I work with, but I work a lot with first timers, and I work a lot with small businesses, and I work a lot with the types of businesses that don't need your, let's call it a standard administrative position. They need something a little bit more with strategy, and not only that logistical brain, but, you know, discernment and the strategical side of all the just logistical needs. So I sort of walk the line on both sides.
Yeah, great. And that makes a lot of sense. So, you know, and I'll lean towards the executive side of your business, but if an executive comes to you, and you know, they say, "Look, I'm needing some help around, you know, how to engage an executive assistant and how do I work with them once I've got them started." Is there a typical process that you would go through, or does it vary depending on where your client's at?
Well, my process tends to be the same. The answers that I get are wildly different. First, I
Yeah.
need to understand the needs of the executive. You know, I will say confidently and without judgment that most executives don't really know what they need, especially in the small business arena. They have so many things going on. They're juggling so many things at once. They really don't know, in essence, what they're looking for. They kind of have an idea. They have a buddy who has an EA and does this and this and this with their EA, or they have another buddy who does this. So they have this mentality of maybe that's what I need or that's what I need. So I initially talk with them. I want to understand who they are. First, I want to understand their personality and their strengths and their weaknesses and who they get along with and what types of people motivate them. I mean, this is a very intimate relationship, the relationship between an assistant and the business owner. So first I got to make sure that the values connect and that you're the same type of people. Then we talk about skills. What do you actually need them to do? What is it about the calendar that's not working for you? What is it about your travel that's not working for you? And then we go from there. Then I find the human. And again, I do the same process with the candidates. I want to find out who they are first. You have to be a certain type of human to do this job well. And so that's where I excel.
Okay, great. Um, so can you give me an example, maybe a bit of a success story of an executive that you've worked with, and I guess, what they were able to achieve by learning how to work with an executive assistant?
Absolutely. So I can give you one example of a client of mine who was slightly in the category of I don't know what I need, because he's only had one assistant in his life and that didn't really work out very well and it didn't. So he had a little bit of trepidation, he had a little fear coming into it that he didn't want this experience to blow up in his face again. And then he have to hire, fire someone, and et cetera, et cetera. So not only, again, did I help him figure out specifically what he needed, which was honestly not close to what he thought he needed. So we wrote a completely different job description that he loved and he was very happy with. And then I found the person to fit that just job description more so than what he thought he needed. I know what he needs. So I gave him, someone that he wasn't expecting, but someone that really has changed his entire life. And the thing that he said to me, which was the most remarkable, he said, I can actually do the thing that I need to do now, which is which is develop my business, which is sales, which is marketing. I can finally not worry about those things. And the other thing he said to me that was very striking, he said, my mentality was, I can do this. I can do it. So why do I need, I can do my own. I can. It's not about can you do it? It's a matter of should you be doing that? Is this really the best use of your time? So we took out some of the things that he rather enjoyed doing, but it's taking too much time. You don't need to be doing it. So sort of reassessed his priorities as well. And we're 1 year. 1 year was 6 days ago. So that's great.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We run a business transformation program, and the first stage of that is getting people clear on their strategic plan and a financial model. And I guess what comes out of that is often a lot of clarity for the business owners as to where they need to be focusing their time and attention. And the initial pushback is like, how am I going to have time to do that? And it's like, well, if we're saying this is the three most important things, like what's going on with all this other stuff? Like what are you spending your time on, and how do we sort of get that off your plate so you can focus on the important stuff? And often some sort of executive assistant, in combination with maybe trying to automate a little bit more staff or, delegate to some existing team members. But executive assistant is often a massive win in terms of, we've had clients that we've worked with who have, like, honestly, they've probably saved 20 to 30 hours a week sometimes, which is huge time saving.
Yeah, it's actually 20 to 50%. So an executive can get back 20% to 50% time
Yeah.
back to what he
Yeah.
needs or she
Yeah,
needs to do.
it's unbelievable, isn't it? Which is just amazing in terms of how much time is going on stuff that somebody else could be taking care of. And like you say, that allows them to focus on the important stuff. So, yeah, so interesting.
Are you struggling to find time to work on your business? Or is your health and relationships out of balance? Lost confidence, or are your weeks filled with fear? Our free 10-day Transform Your Performance online course shows you how to unlock at least 5 hours a week. We start with the secret to guaranteed success, and with over 100 lessons and free tools, you will become more focused, productive, and feel more in control of your business, health, and relationships. GrowSmallBusiness.com.
Little bit of a side question, but tell me about the relationship between an executive and an executive assistant, and how do you make that as effective as possible? Like, are there some rules of thumb around how you should be working with an executive assistant, or does it vary?
Nope, there are strict rules. Keep it human and keep communicating. Those are the two things. Again, this is a human to human position. This is a human trying to take care of another human's life. And if you don't find that to be intimate and personal, then maybe an executive assistant isn't for you. I also want to tell your audience, maybe the level of an executive assistant isn't where you need to go. Maybe you need an office manager. Maybe you're just at the point right now where you just need someone to answer calls and respond to emails and greet visitors and make sure that the office is taken care of. That's fine. We have levels, and then maybe you need to move to an administrative assistant who's maybe more dedicated to a certain group of people, or maybe dedicated to a president or a CEO and their vice president and their CMO, or maybe a shared space. Then, when you graduate to the point of needing a dedicated executive assistant, that's where we're really human and we communicate all the time. It will not work. And I will say this until my lips fall off. If you are spending 30 minutes a week, I know executives who are spending 30 minutes every other week with their executive assistant, and it makes my head want to pop off. How is this person supposed to support you? So, I mean, this has to be a daily thing. You have to talk to this person all the time because your priorities are shifting, their priorities are shifting. So yeah, keep it human.
Yeah, I love that. I think that applies to a lot of roles in pretty much every role in the workplace. But I think you're right. It can sometimes get forgotten a little bit in that executive assistant space. We deal with a bit of, I guess, offshore assistants and things like that. So, sometimes, I guess, just by virtue of distance, it can be maybe a little harder to keep the personal touch to it, but it doesn't have to. So, but yeah, really
There's
good.
all types, there's all kinds. And this is such a amorphous position. I knew, and I probably know, 5 digits worth of executive assistants or just assistants in general. We all do different things because working in a position, we're working for a human. It's different. What we do is dependent on a human, and every human is different. So we have to understand that, and you really have to go into it understanding what your needs are to know what level of support you need, what level of assistance, and not to be ashamed about it, and not to go on being like, I don't need someone to pick up my dry cleaning. That's not what we do anymore. Like, come on. Get over that statement.
Yeah. Have you got any advice around the recruitment side of things, in terms of maybe a way to put this, like, are there any sort of typical mistakes that you could give people advice on now to help them avoid those mistakes in future?
Sure. One of the biggest mistakes is listing only skill and not anything about the human that you need. So that is by far the biggest mistake. If it's a 1 page of bullet points of calendar, travel, and expense, you're not going to get a specific type of human. You're going to get a very wide range of people, and you're going to get 1,000 resumes. The more specific you can be in your job description, the less people will apply. So if you want 1,000 people to apply, make it generic and don't talk about anything specific. If you don't want to go through that hassle and you want 50 or 100 resumes or 20 to look through, make it specific. What is it about the human and what is it about the skill? Bigger than calendar maintenance. What is it in the calendar that's bothering you? What do you need them to do? Is it just scheduling and that's it? Great. Is it, I need a strategic mindset to understand the business so that I know what needs to be moved and when and who's important? That's a different skill, totally different skill. So those are the two things, be very descriptive and detailed, and allocate for the human that you need that fits in with your culture.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes heaps of sense. Excellent. And look, I suppose, do you have any other advice for, and look, you've already given us heaps of good tips, but any other advice for anything people should be thinking about if they're looking to engage an executive assistant? Just any good tips or tricks to make it work really well?
Sure. First and foremost, remove the shame, blame, remove all the ideas you have about what this position is, and know that this is a position that you can mold around your needs.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're trying to find someone who's doing the things, who loves to do the things that you hate, and loves to do the things that you don't need to be doing. It's time to just let go of some of those things and remove the shame. Remove all the labels of whoever you think this person is, and find someone to support you in growing yourself and your business, because that's ultimately what we do.
Great. I love it. So if this has twigged some interest in it from our audience, where can they go to find out a bit more about you or reach out for some help?
Sure. I am not terribly hard to find. If my name is Monique Helstrom, that is my website, moniquehelstrom.com. That is my email, monique@moniquehelstrom.com. And all of my socials are all Monique Helstrom. So not hard to find me. A fairly unique name.
Yeah, yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes as well. But yeah, look, I'm sure there might be a few people who are definitely interested from this conversation to find out some more. So that's
Yeah,
great.
even if you just need some coaching, even if you just need some tips and you already have an EA and you just want to improve the relationship, or you want to strengthen it, or you want to help them grow in a certain area, like even those parts I can help with.
Yeah, and I think that's actually really important to point out because, certainly within our client base, we've got a lot of people who are working with executive assistants and they've already found a lot of time savings and a lot of value add. But maybe they're going, look, I think I'm only scratching the surface here in terms of what I could get out of this relationship. And maybe we can both work more effectively together with some external help to fine tune that. So that's a really good point. Great.
Absolutely.
All right, Monique. Well, thank you so much for the conversation. Like I say, that was really insightful, and I think we've touched on some super useful stuff there. So I really appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, and to all the small businesses out there, you can't do it all, but be the best.
Want to help other small business owners improve their business? There's one quick thing you can do, which is jump over to iTunes and leave a review. Or if you don't have an account, follow us on Spotify.